If we could have everyone's attention, I think we're going to use these microphones. How we're going to do this, I was asked by numerous residents to facilitate a meeting with the police department and with some village board members to discuss some of the crime and nuisance issues that have not only been going on the west side, but also on the east side. And so that's what this meeting is about. What this meeting is not about is it's not a bash the police department meeting. We're going to keep the meeting on topic. It's going to be about the crime and nuisance issues. It's not going to be about speeding. It's not going to be about any of the other host of issues, not about taxes, any of those sorts of things. Stan, kind of the agenda for the night. I'm going to turn it over to President Brawley for a minute. He's going to say a few words, at which point we're going to turn it over to the police department. I met with the police department last week, and they have an agenda of items that they're going to go through, at which point I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Bond, who's graciously agreed to do a presentation on Neighborhood Watch. If you haven't signed in already, make sure you sign in at the end. There are Neighborhood Watch sign-up sheets for each development over there on the other table. We're going to keep questions until the very end, after we've already talked, because I believe that we'll probably answer most of your questions in our discussion. As you have a question, you can come down to this podium here. There's a sign-in sheet. You've still got to sign in if you ask a question. And make sure that you speak legibly into the microphone. This is an open meeting because there are numerous board members here. Once you get more than 2 board members, you're required by law to publicize the meeting and have an open meeting. So it's being recorded, both video and audio, and at some point will be played on the Village YouTube channel and probably a couple other various medias. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt Brawley. President Matt.
Sorry, I'm coming all the way from the back. It's my wife and I's anniversary today. So yeah, if anybody wants to take me home tonight, I'm just kidding. No, actually, she was very appreciative about loaning me to this meeting tonight. So I just wanted to do the introduction and the welcome. I'll be in back for the meeting. But I think hopefully the takeaways from tonight will be that our police department is actively pursuing the issues that are going on. And there's a lot that we can all do to help quell a lot of the issues. So I am grateful that despite the weather tonight, that all of you took some time out of your daily lives to come here and get more involved. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And with that, I'll turn it over to, well, we might as well go through, I guess we got signs. They know who we are. I'll turn it over to Chief Myers.
All right, thank you for everybody coming tonight. I also like to reiterate what the mayor said. I know it's a little bit of bad weather, but I appreciate you coming out. Everybody, according, line up here. So my deputy chief, Armando Sanders, is going to take over.
Can I see that?
Sure.
Well, it's my anniversary too.
It was coming on.
Hello? Okay. All right. While I'm talking over a couple things, if we could just pass out some of our crime prevention tips. But before I do that, let me introduce, this is Sergeant Liz Palco, Sergeant Ishmael Diaz. They're our community policing duo here. I don't know if you can read their name tags or not, but that's who we also have in attendance here. So, apologize, but I got to walk around. I've been sitting a lot, and the light's like right in my face, and I apologize for those of you over here who can't probably see the outline. But if you can't hear me, please put your hand up, and I'll try to speak louder.
Yeah, you got to get it up.
Speak into the microphone. All right. Okay, so the agenda or the outline for what we're going to talk about, recent crime increase in trends, issues in neighboring communities, gang and graffiti overview, social media, and neighborhood watch. Again, if you have questions, please save them to the end, sign in so we can all do this kind of in an orderly fashion. First, while we're here, we have our officers out, and obviously we can all do things better, but I want to make sure we say thank you to everybody who puts their lives on the line and helps protect us. And so I always got to say that first to our guys. So thank you. I appreciate it. As you can see, earlier today, a gunman critically wounded a House Majority member, injured 4 others, including 2 police officers, before U.S. Capitol Police took down the rifle-wielding assailant. Violence occurs in all areas of our world, and we send our thoughts and prayers to those brave individuals who have lost their lives protecting others. So the reason we're here today, we want to increase communication between the residents and the police department, talk about a recent increase we've had with vehicle burglaries. School is out. There is increased activity in the evening. I'm sure you see more juveniles and more activity as the kids are out now. With the weather being nicer, that has also encouraged people to come out. Not that we want it this hot, but people are out more than they were. Crimes of opportunity, they definitely have increased. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. And from the police to everyone else, we can all do a better job and work together to make a difference. So the crime prevention tips we've put out, we've done something like this before. These are pretty basic things that we try to remind people to do, because every little bit, again, will help make a difference. So if you don't have one, make sure you get one. I don't want to read it to you because we're going to be going through these kind of later, but tips that we can all make sure we learn from and remind ourselves and others about. So in surrounding communities, the recent vehicle burglaries is probably the biggest topic. And it's not a crime that's unique just to Montgomery. We have had an increase in vehicle burglaries, but so have a lot of the surrounding communities as well as other crimes. Aurora's Facebook page, June 9th, we're experiencing a rash of vehicle burglaries again, several which appear to be related due to their close proximity. Many of these involved unlocked vehicles and having those items left in plain view, which crimes of opportunity, that's what they are. Take advantage of someone who leaves their vehicle unlocked, leaves their valuables in plain sight. So that's from Aurora, June 9th. Oswego, June 12th. Proactive approach as to the recent shootings they've been experiencing in Oswego and Boulder Hill, which again, right next to Montgomery. So this is important that we pay attention to the surrounding communities, not just to what happens in Montgomery. June 13th, Plano Chief, they had BB gun shootings, 61 incidents, tallied over $30,000 in damage, with kids going around shooting out BB guns. They also affected Yorkville and Sandwich. This is from Plainfield. They're called a Felony Lane Gang, and it's a burglary crew out of Florida. They'll come, and what they've usually targeted is people going to daycares, dropping off their children. When they go in, they'll go take items out of their vehicle and leave. Again, May 4th of this year, Plainfield talking about it. You can see the highlighted part in there. Naperville police provided a map of more than 20 recent car burglaries and warned residents to lock their car doors. Now, that may be something you're going to hear over and over, and people say, oh, well, that's common sense, but it doesn't happen. That's why multiple departments talk about it. This is a Naperville police article from May 3rd. Naperville police, lock your doors. Again, the same type of crime happening surrounding communities, so it's not something that's unique to Montgomery. I just want to make sure everyone knows that. We do work hard and diligently. Unfortunately, not everything happens like you may see on TV in an hour, and things don't get solved right away. But we do work diligently to bring the criminals and prosecute them. This was from May 23rd. Montgomery man sentenced to 40 years in state prison for area burglaries. Now, we work with other departments and go through the justice system, but when we catch them, we try to hammer them as hard as they can because they're committing crimes in our town. We just had this one, June 13th. Montgomery man wanted for several motor vehicle burglaries arrested. This was just, again, a couple days ago, but the crimes don't happen that day. This takes time. We have to get all of our evidence together and make sure we can prosecute accordingly. So I know people want to know, what are you guys doing? We don't see people. Well, we're not going to necessarily divulge all of our tactics. It can be easily related to, like, when there's a traffic problem or a concern. I don't know, I've heard of one on Mayfield Drive. Maybe some of you have heard of that. But if we sit at a stop sign in an intersection at 8 a.m. every day, what do you think people that drive by at 8 a.m. every day do? They stop, and then they say, oh, that's not when they do it. So not every time you report a problem are we going to show up in a marked car and say, okay, here we are. We're going to be doing some covert operations and some other things. So you may not see it, doesn't mean we don't address it. And it may not happen as readily as you like, but that's the reality of what we have to do. So, you know, crimes aren't solved. I mean, so many people think that, well, you got Prince. When are you going to get him back? It's like, okay, a long time, especially if it's not a priority. But people really think, like, okay, so tomorrow you'll know who it is and we'll find out. That's not the case. Unfortunately, it isn't. So I just want people to have realistic expectations when it comes to what the police can and cannot do. Even if we find someone, we have to get approval from the state's attorney, and the criminal justice system isn't as simple and clean-cut as you may think. So who here, from everybody here, had one of these crime prevention tips on their car? Anybody here have one on their car in the past couple days? Anybody see any? So we've all been pretty vigilant pretty recently, right? And we've all been locking our doors, and we've had a lot of social media attention to the problem and the vehicle burglaries. And again, we've put it out on the Village Facebook page and on the Village website, and you see surrounding communities. So just this week, Sunday, our midnight guys walked around for an hour in the area. Margaret, Schuner, and Becca. During the midnight shift, again, an hour. 11 unlocked cars, 3 garage doors open, 1 vehicle running in the street. Just an hour. Monday, we walked in the area, Kenilworth, Kennedy, and Windette. 15 cars unlocked. And again, this is during a time where everyone, hey, lock your doors. We all know. It's easy. We're all hearing about it. Last night, our guys walked for an hour. I want someone to take a guess how many unlocked cars we found in an hour on 6 streets. 1 hour. I can't hear anybody. 23, 25, 50, 40, 15. Roxbury, Mayfield, Columbia, Avalon, Savoy, Hanbury. 6 streets with 72 unlocked cars. Okay? We have to help each other. You wonder why people will come and burglarize vehicles, crimes of opportunity. And this is just like when we're out in areas we know we've been dealing with car burglaries, and we still have the community where we can do better. All of us do better. Now, even if we had 20 officers, you got to realize criminals' job is to not get caught. They're not waiting till we drive by and then go break into a vehicle. Of the cars, these are all unlocked. Of most of the burglaries we've had, there's no windows getting smashed out. People are leaving their car doors unlocked and leaving valuables in plain sight, like purses, like wallets, handguns have been taken from vehicles. That's unnecessary. We can all do a better job. And I think this is just a good reminder of what we have. So I think that's important that we start spreading the word more and not just assuming everyone knows lock your doors. Because we put that out and some people say, oh, that's so dumb. Everyone knows that. Okay. But yeah, we can all, but bottom line, we can all do better. So that's just something to me, when I saw it, I'm like, that's amazing. Like, that's amazing to me. So I'm gonna go over a little bit about basic gang stuff. What we don't want is for residents to assume there's gang activity, someone's a gang member, this is graffiti. We have trained gang officers, and we do look at gang activity and criminal activity, and if that's the case. But we'll determine that. Because do we have a gang problem in Montgomery? No. But are there gang members in Montgomery? Absolutely. They're everywhere. And they don't come into town and say, hey, I'm staying at my aunt's house this week, just so you know. I'm a verified gang member, probably going to be causing some problems, so come see me later. It doesn't happen. But we've got a good group of guys that are very vigilant in that. We share information with neighboring communities and track their activity. But again, we can't be everywhere and everywhere at all the time. So if you have something that is suspicious or you believe there's some graffiti or markings that are gang-related, your best bet is to call the police. We can make a report, we can document it, and then move forward accordingly. All right, so real quick, what is a gang? The Illinois compiled statutes, the ILCS, what we go by is going to say it's 3 or more people, 3 or more members that are doing criminal activity. So we can define it because just because someone wears a Chicago Bulls jersey or turns their hat sideways or lifts up one pant leg or does something that you may or may not know doesn't make them a gang member. But if you want to know about it, then that's where we would say, okay, let us know who and what. But we caution you not to just make blanket statements and assume things because that's not always the reality. If we said every person who wore a Cubs jersey was a gang member, I think we would be pretty busy. So what can you do as a citizen again? If you suspect gang activity in your area, contact the police immediately. Gangs often lead to crime problems. Police should be made aware of any potential problem areas. This is from the Aurora, Illinois website. So we neighbor Aurora. We're partners with them. Our gang guys work with their gang guys. We share network information because it's important. Because the same people, they travel to different areas until they get caught, and then they move around, and that's just how some of that works. So we work with other police and agencies, report all suspicious activity, set up a neighborhood watch or a community patrol, let the police know about gang graffiti, get and share the facts on the gang problem in your community, find out what local services, non-for-profit as well as government will work with the communities to help avoid gang problems. So what we're actually doing when we do have documented gang members and all that, we track their activity, identify the individuals who they're hanging out with, monitor them, and then share that information so other departments also know who the common players are and who we need to keep an eye out. And half the battle is them knowing we know who and where they are. So there's another handout. What can parents do to prevent gang involvement? We've handed this out before. There's copies up here. Some basic things, again, you can read through it, but I don't want to read to you. And there's a front and a back. What can a parent do? What can students do? What to look out for? That's all I have for my part. So next will be Sergeant Palco, who's going to talk about social media.
Social media. So social media, everyone in here has Facebook because I recognize a lot of your faces from Facebook, which is good and bad. Not that I recognize your face, but Facebook is a good tool, so is social media. The pros, information sharing. We spread it very quickly. Like, you guys spread it super, super quick. That's good. Helps out to reach out to other people in the community and, let them know what's going on. It hits before the newspapers. It hits before our police report is done, which can be good and can also be bad. It helps us solve crimes. It's very true. It helps us solve crimes. We've solved burglaries. We've gotten intel that I helped Aurora solve something by looking at something they put on Facebook and was able to look at our records. So it is a tool, and we appreciate it. Cons. Rumorville, 100%. Judging people. It's not an official reporting mechanism, so to put something on Facebook and follow it up with the police aren't doing anything, I might take a little offense to that because you've gotten it on Facebook before the police have even responded to that person's report. And I'm using you generalizing. I know it's not everyone, but it just needs to be said. Just because somebody put something on Facebook, that is not necessarily 100% true. When we go to calls for service and just say, for example, it's a domestic or kids not agreeing, and the truth is somewhere in there. He or she are going to tell you one thing, the other person something else somewhere in between there is the truth. We go to a vehicle burglary report, my car was locked. I don't know how they got in, they must have a gadget. My car was locked. Okay, that's one theory, but we've had several car burglaries where there's been no forced entries, so is it possible you forgot to lock your car? I'm not calling you a liar, I'm just saying that that's a strong possibility. But adamant on Facebook that I locked my car. People post their opinions, and I'm the school liaison officer, so the elementary schools we have here, when I walk in and give a presentation on bullying, it cracks me up. I have a 2-year-old, so these kids are a little bit older. 1st grade through 5th grade. How many of you have a cell phone? Almost all of their hands go up. It scares me, because my kids never get one. Then I say, how many of you, and this was most recently in a 4th grade bullying presentation, how many of you have a social media site that you're able to use? Instagram, which I don't understand. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Some hands went down, but a strong majority of these young kids have that. So my point with that is, we as adults should really think twice before we put something on Facebook. And I'm all for sharing information, because like I said, it's a great tool for us. But when we're calling people or offenders or juveniles such derogatory things that can so easily be shared with other people, and our own youth have these same tools to communicate on social media, they have the ability to see that. So apple tree. Our children are following in our footsteps. So I really, really want everyone to just think for a minute before you hit that post or whatever. Use it. It's a great tool. It's great to keep your neighbors informed. You saw something suspicious. There is nothing wrong with putting that on there, but they're a suspicious person or being, they're not expletive. And I just think it's a good reminder, because these kids are learning it somewhere, and I know I'm not innocent. You know, my daughter knows work is dumb. She said that. She's 2. She shouldn't say that. Apparently I said it once or twice. I don't think it's dumb, but it is. I know. I'm an honest person. Police, we can't catch up to how quickly it spreads. So I think I've already hit base on that. And then for those of you that want me to have a Montgomery Police Department Facebook page, here is why I won't. We are a small agency. I am the administrative sergeant, and I do monitor. I'm in almost all of the Facebook groups in the community, not under my name, so I'll just leave it at that. But, I mean, you'll see, you know why I'm on there. But I use it to see what's going on, because like I said, I get information from that often quicker than, you know, as the reports come in. And some people, they'll put on Facebook, my car was ransacked last night. Somebody will always put, call MPD. I'm like, yeah, call MPD. They'll be like, nah, nothing's missing. Well, believe it or not, it helps us with a timeline. So if your car was burglarized, whether or not you locked it or not, we kind of need to know that, because maybe your neighbors have cameras or maybe someone else does, and we can track them. So it helps us. So even if nothing was missing, did someone enter your vehicle? That's crime, okay? So, you know, to monitor Facebook 24/7, we're not at the size that we can do that, but we do have a village Facebook page. And that's where Nixle comes in really handy, because Debbie, who works for the village, is really good. Once I send out a Nixle, I just forward it to her, and she'll put it on the village Facebook page. And then I do go and share it in the neighborhood groups, and I know Trustee Youngerman shares it in the neighborhood groups. Stan's awesome about sharing it in his neighborhood groups, you know. So if you see one of those that's coming from Nixle, I mean, that's legit. Pay attention to it. Share it with your people. Don't be afraid to contact us if you have further information regarding that. That's where social media really helps us. I don't know how to use it. So this card, when you sign up for it, it gives you options to sign up for alerts, advisories, and community. If you don't select all of them, if I just put out, hey, Montgomery Fest is, you know, whatever weekend, it's just a community announcement, you won't receive it on your phone. You may only receive it in email form. So make sure when you go to the site, you look at it. What I use this for is the Andrew Trail burglary that was in the paper. We put that out there. Traffic incidents, road closures. You can also sign up for other neighboring departments. So a lot of people probably work in the city and travel up Orchard Road to 88. So I know North Aurora uses it often to put their stuff up. So it's not just specific for Montgomery. You can sign up for multiple agencies. Yeah, it gives you an alert on your phone and then a link, and you can click on it, and there will be maybe a picture of a suspect or whatever. So it's a great tool on that. And I think that's all I have for right now.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to steal a little bit of Stan's thunder and talk about Neighborhood Watch before he gets up here. I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of the police department and what we're looking for when it comes to having the community involvement with the Neighborhood Watch program. How many members of Neighborhood Watch groups do we have in here? Okay, it looks like we can probably do a little bit better with the participation on it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what Neighborhood Watch is and how to get one started in your neighborhood if you're interested in doing that. So what is Neighborhood Watch? What is a Neighborhood Watch group? Group of people living in the same area who want to make their neighborhood safer by working together and in conjunction with local law enforcement to reduce crime and improve quality of life. And I think that's what we all want. When we go home, we want to know that we're going to a safe neighborhood and where we're secure in our own homes and we don't have to worry about somebody coming and stealing our, going into our cars and stealing stuff out of the cars or, trying to burglarize our homes. What's the benefit to a Neighborhood Watch program? Reduction in crime, better quality of life, sense of security, building community pride, unity, preparing for helping others and ourselves in our community. Provides law enforcement agencies with volunteer support year-round. And I think that's important because, as you all know, we can only be at one place at one time, okay? You guys are the eyes and ears for us. Because we can't be everywhere, we count on you guys. And we count on the information we receive from you guys. So it's important that people get involved with this. And you're going to hear this a couple of times. You guys are the eyes and ears of the police department. A lot of times, unless you guys call us, I can tell you it's very rare for an officer to stumble upon a major crime. A lot of times it's because somebody calls 911 and, they tell us, hey, something's going on over here. Then we show up. But as far as an officer just driving through the neighborhood and stumbling upon a crime, that's a rare thing. It does happen. But it is rare, so we definitely need the community involvement to help us when crime is occurring in our neighborhoods. So who can be involved in Neighborhood Watch? Anybody can be involved in Neighborhood Watch. So everybody in here can definitely become a member of the Neighborhood Watch group. And if you don't have a Neighborhood Watch group in your particular subdivision, then that's something we're going to talk about, how we're going to get it rolling and get it started in your community. That way we can have a sense of security in all of our neighborhoods within Montgomery. So there are 5 steps to starting a Neighborhood Watch group. And I think one of the important things to keep in mind is that when it comes to Neighborhood Watch, you guys are the ones who are tasked with getting the program going. You guys go out and recruit the people in your neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood where you're having quite a bit of burglaries from motor vehicles, now I'm sure you can walk around your neighborhood and find another neighbor who probably had their car broken into as well. And that's a start. You get that going, you talk to a few neighbors, you get a group of 5 or 6 people in your neighborhood who want to participate, then that's how you get this thing going. But it comes down to you guys going out and doing the legwork and looking for these people to volunteer to be in these groups. We definitely will facilitate once you guys have a Neighborhood Watch group going, whether it be, if you guys are looking for some particular training or looking to get information on what kind of crime to look out for or any neighborhood issues that we've had, we'll definitely facilitate all of that. We will help you guys get it going, but as far as going, knocking on doors and looking for people to be involved with this, we put it on the residents to go on and do that legwork. And once we have something going, we will definitely help out as much as we can. So like I said, once you have it going, you can contact us and we'll definitely set up a meeting. We'll sit down and, with the block captains and kind of talk about what some of the concerns are within the neighborhood and what some of the problem things are going on in the neighborhood, whether it's a nuisance or some type of other crime. After you do that, the third step would be going back into your community and setting up a meeting within your neighborhood to talk about what some of the main concerns are within your community, to see what some of the common issues are that you guys would like to address. That would also be a time to kind of talk about, okay, what is it that we can do to deter some of the crime or deter some of the nuisance issues going on, whether it's, juveniles hanging out in a park after it's been closed or late at night after curfew, those types of issues. We can formulate a plan within a neighborhood watch group. And again, that's information that you guys would then pass along to us, which then we would address that issue, the way we see necessary. The other thing is, once you have this group going and you've already been in contact with the police department, it's important to keep it going. Because what I've seen sometimes is you get the neighborhood watch group going and you have it going strong and it goes for 1 year or 2 years and then it kind of dissipates because you get people that start leaving the community. You have some members who, were block captains or who were in charge of it, who were the main contact person. Those people, move to different towns and it just kind of goes by the wayside and nobody really, picks up the baton and runs with it. So it's important, once you have this going, you keep up with it. Because I have seen some groups where, they start off strong and after a couple of years they kind of fizzle out. So, and, there's a few different reasons why that can happen. I know one of the issues with one of the neighborhood watch groups is, I believe the coordinator moved out of town. I'm not sure if that was your neighborhood watch group or not. Okay. The coordinator moved out of town and there was no contact between us and that neighborhood watch group, and it kind of simmered down a little bit, but we're going to get it back going again, and we're going to make it as strong as it was before. So the fifth thing you'll need to do, you implement a phone tree or an email tree, a text tree, and you implement some action steps. And when I say action steps, that would be how are you going to get people to join your neighborhood watch group? One of the things that is recommended is that you have some type of picnic where you guys have a picnic, you introduce yourselves, and you guys just kind of, you mix business with pleasure. Eat a hot dog, eat a hamburger, have a drink, and just kind of get to know each other. And that way the communication stays up and you guys can talk about any other concerns that need to be addressed. So here's one of the things that I'm going to talk about is and this doesn't necessarily have to be anybody within the neighborhood watch group. It can be just any community member. You don't have to be part of the neighborhood watch group, obviously, to call the police, okay? But the most important thing to keep in mind as a community member who contacts 911 or who calls us based on some type of suspicious activity or crime that they see occurring is do not put yourself in danger, okay? And please do not try to apprehend any criminal, okay? I'm going to talk about a case that we had. It's a couple of years old now, but this is an actual case that happened here in Montgomery. So I just want you guys to take a look at this. This is how we receive the call. So when we get a call, somebody calls 911, it goes to our dispatch center, who then starts typing notes into their computer system. And as we're going to the call, we can look at our computer and see what the notes are saying. And I'm going to show you what it is that these officers were seeing when they were responding to this scene. This happened out on the west side of town. So basically, when we received the call, it said a male in a pickup truck following a kid. Male in the truck had a gun. Okay, great truck. Truck is coming back now. Mel was yelling at the kid. Truck pulled into a house. It's the corner house across the street. A white house. Christmas light on the front porch. Thinks he put the gun in his back pocket. Handgun, unknown color. That's all we had. We don't know who this guy is. We don't know who the kid that he was chasing was. Now, I want you guys to put yourselves in the position of the police officer, okay? What would you guys think if you received that call? What are you thinking? Because this is all we have. We don't know that the guy with the gun is one of you guys who is a community member who, instead of calling 911, decided to chase a kid. And not just that, he produced a handgun that a neighbor was able to see, okay? So this is why we say when we want the community involvement, what we're looking for is for you guys to be the eyes and ears. We don't want any of you to be put in a situation where somebody can get hurt, whether it's yourself or you guys seriously hurt somebody else, based on something that you saw and you deemed to be suspicious activity. So I'm going to go on and talk about what the statement was from this person who we ended up subsequently arresting and charging with a misdemeanor for unlawful use of weapon. No names are in here. So basically, this gentleman comes home, sees a suspicious person between his house and the neighbor's house, confronts this individual. The individual said, hey, you know, I thought I heard somebody call my name, so I walked over to this location. This is where you found me. He says, well, I want you to either identify yourself by name or show me your identification. The kid tells him, no, I don't have anything. Says, how old are you? Well, I'm 17 years old. So the kid was not cooperating, and he decided he was going to leave, so he starts walking away. At this point, the caller, or not, I'm sorry, not the caller, the other subject goes into his truck, retrieves a handgun, okay, and starts following the kid, okay? The kid then starts running, so this gentleman ran back to his truck, got into the truck, and started chasing this kid. So that's where we get the 911 call from a witness. So the moral of this is we don't want this. Only bad things can happen when you guys try to take it into your own hands. Because when we pull up to that scene, we don't know if you're a good guy or a bad guy. What we do know is that there's somebody here with a gun, okay? And when there's a gun involved, that's not good for us, and it's not good for any of you guys. Only bad things can happen. Fortunately, in this case, nobody got hurt. But I'm sure you can look in the media and find cases where that's not the case. People get hurt. So please, when we say we want your involvement, please, the involvement that we're looking for is call 911, report suspicious activity, but please don't try to take it into your own hands. We don't want anybody in here to get hurt. With that being said, what is suspicious activity? Now, this picture right here is actually the picture of the offender that we just arrested. That's not really him, so. So what is suspicious activity? A stranger loitering in the neighborhood or a vehicle cruising the streets. So, you know, if you see somebody that you don't recognize in the neighborhood, give us a call, let us know. Say, hey, I've never seen this person in the neighborhood. It may be nothing. It may be somebody that you've never seen who lives in the neighborhood, but you've just never seen. It may be something. If you see a high volume of traffic going to and coming from a home on a daily basis, you know, if you see a car pull into the driveway for, 30 seconds, and this is a constant thing going on, and somebody comes out of a house and, there's some type of transaction going on, that's probably something that we'd like to know about. So give us a call. Someone peering into car windows or into cars or windows. Most people don't walk around the neighborhood and start peeking into people's windows or looking into cars. So if you see something like that, definitely give us a call. Loitering around schools, parks, or secluded areas. Open or broken doors and windows at unoccupied residences. Someone tampering with electrical, gas, or sewer systems without any identifiable company, vehicle, or uniform. Persons arriving or leaving at unusual hours. So again, those are all things that may not be anything or may turn out to be something. So reporting methods. As Sergeant Pelko touched on, social media is not a reporting method, okay? 911, obviously if it's an emergency, you contact 911. If it's a situation where you don't deem it to need an immediate response from either the police or from fire department paramedics, you can call the non-emergency. If it's somewhere you wish to remain anonymous, you can contact the 897-8707 number, the extension is 9058, and you can remain anonymous. The other one is Crime Stoppers. That is anonymous as well. And lastly, the Village of Montgomery website has a report a concern link on the website. You can always click on that and report your concern via that route. But it's important to understand, if it's an emergency situation, call 911. If you see somebody with a gun, don't go to the website and click on the report a concern, you know? Oftentimes we get something reported that, you know, happened that we read it and we're like, wow, that somebody probably should have called 911, because that probably needed an officer to respond right away. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the observations, and when you guys contact 911, some of the things that we're looking for you guys to give us so that we can have an appropriate response as far as the observations when you observe a person or a vehicle who may be suspicious. You're always going to start with the basics, move on to the specifics, and then finally add detail. So if you observe a person, first we're going to want to know, okay, is that person a male or a female? That's pretty basic. Is it a white, Hispanic, African American? Then you're going to touch on the clothing color, hair color. Then you're going to go into, okay, do they have any jewelries or any tattoos that we could use to identify them? How many and which way are they headed? Now, one of the things we get sometimes is the caller calls 911. Hey, I just saw this happen. They went right from my house. Okay. So it's important to know, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure most of the people in here know north, east, south, and west based on your location. So that really helps us out, because if somebody calls and, well, they just took a right on this street or went left on this street, I mean, that's okay, but if you could give us a direction to travel based on, you know, northeast, south, or west, that would really help us out. So if you observe a vehicle and you deem it to be suspicious and you call 911, we're going to want to know what is the make and model. And I know not everybody in here knows makes and models and stuff like that, but at least get us 2-door, 4-door, minivan, SUV. What color is it? Can you see the plate number? If so, what is the plate number? What state is the plate? Nowadays, there's so many different plates just for Illinois. I mean, it's hard to know if it's an in-state plate or an out-of-state plate. There's so many different types of specialty plates. Then you go into identifying some of the details. Does it have chrome rims, tinted windows? Is there any damage that you notice on the vehicle that would help us identify it later on? How many occupants? And again, direction of travel. That's important as well. So what can you expect when you call 911 or you report suspicious activity? It all depends on what you're reporting and the seriousness of the crime that's being reported. So one thing to understand is that emergency calls they're going to take priority over non-emergency calls. So let's say, for instance, we get an accident with injuries, or we get a call for some type of crime that's in progress that needs an immediate response. It's probably going to take priority over you calling and saying, hey, my neighbor's dog is barking. Okay. I mean, and I hate to say it, sometimes, you know, we go to calls based on the priority. So sometimes it will take us a little bit longer to respond to some of those, you know, other calls as far as, you know, things that are more nuisance than actual crimes. Some non-emergency calls may not have a uniformed officer arrive. So sometimes we get a call from people and they say, well, I never saw the police show up. Well, maybe it's because we looked at it and said, you know what, maybe this is something that we need to pass along to investigations or pass along to our SET team, which is the special enforcement team, which, you know, it really do no good for us to send a uniformed officer and have these criminals see the police show up in a fully marked squad car in front of their house. So you may not see a squad car show up when you guys contact us at times. Because like I said, if we deem that it's better to send pass on the information to investigations or the SET team, then that's what we'll do. One other thing to keep in mind, most minor property crimes will not have evidence to collect. I know like on CSI, like they collect prints and DNA for all kinds of stuff. When we get somebody breaking into a car, chances are we're not gonna go out and fully process the car for fingerprints and DNA and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. I know with a lot of these TV shows nowadays, people have an expectation of us showing up and, getting on the computer and lifting a print off the car, putting it on the computer, and hey, we know who it is. Unfortunately, it does not work that way. The last thing to keep in mind is crime takes time to solve. Unfortunately, some crimes do go unsolved. I mean, that's just the reality. Not something that we like, but that's a reality of police work. So why do we do this? Okay, the goal of the partnership is to prevent major crimes from hitting our community. So if we can take care of the smaller crimes and the minor crimes, maybe that'll prevent the major crime from happening in your neighborhood. That's why it's important for us to work together, the community and the police. So we may not be able to prevent all crime, but reporting of suspicious persons or activities can act as a deterrent to individuals who may be looking to commit crimes of opportunity or more serious crimes. And there goes that word again, right? Crimes of opportunity, leaving your cars unlocked, leaving valuables in there, handguns. Don't leave a handgun in an unlocked car. Maybe I probably didn't have to say that, but we have had a couple stolen out of vehicles in the past few weeks. So again, the eyes and ears. You guys are the eyes and ears of the police department, and together we can make a difference. There's my contact information. I also have business cards. If anybody's interested in talking about setting up a neighborhood watch program in your neighborhood, definitely see me sometime after, and we can talk about it privately, and you guys will have all my information to contact me. Okay? Thank you.
One thing I just want to follow up real quick, and I forgot to mention it. With these 72 unlocked cars and the other ones we found, what do most people leave in their cars?
Money. Oh, garage
Your
door.
garage door opener. So you just gave someone access to your house, and if you don't lock the door from your garage to your house, you've just allowed someone to go into your house. So, again, something we don't want to think of, but that's the reality of the world we live in.
And real quick, touching on using 911 or the non-emergency line, I'm not sure if everyone's clear, but it goes to the exact same place. So when you call 911, if it's an emergency, truly an in progress, and you call 911, it's going to KenCom Dispatch Center, and they're going to answer the phone 911. So they might get a 911 call from Montgomery and have another 911 call from Oswego or Kendall or Yorkville, but they have multiple operators in there. So if you need 911, you call it. Now when you call that 553-0554 number, they're going to answer it Montgomery Police, but they are physically located in Yorkville at KenCom, okay? That's who dispatches for us. They know our area, they know where you're at, you tell them your address, they put it in their little computer, it comes up. But just know that, it's the same place. You're getting the same services, we're all paying taxes and getting the same services. It doesn't go to like some weird outsourced area.
With that, I will turn it over to Trustee Bond.
There's the remote as well. We worn the batteries down, right? So it follows to me, since Officer Diaz did such a good job, to try to think of something to say that he hasn't said already. I've got a couple of thoughts. I wanted to start on the neighborhood watch in Montgomery. Our watch in my neighborhood is 8 years old, and Ben Brzoska and Linda are here. They helped found our watch. If there's someone else here from our watch that I'm not, how many people are watch leaders or block captains? Okay, well, we're going to get some more tonight then. Montgomery entered neighborhood watch competition nationally about 3 years ago, and we won third place in communities our size nationwide for the depth and breadth and understanding of our program and why Neighborhood Watch can actually be effective. So you're about to step into an operation that really works and can make a difference in your neighborhood. And that was the other comment I wanted to make. Neighborhood Watch is a process, but it's also an attitude. This is your neighborhood. This is where you've invested your finances, your energy, your family. I'm going to say something politically incorrect. That little symbol in the lower right-hand corner is probably the most powerful gang sign in the nation. There may be a handful of bad actors in your neighborhood, but there may be 1,000 people like you who aren't willing to settle for that kind of behavior. And that's really the issue. You get what you settle for. If bad behavior in a neighborhood is okay, if you just want to sit back and be a victim, if you just want to report it and do nothing more, you're going to get more of it. So think of it a little bit as an attitude. You can do more than that. You can work together as a group and actually make a difference. And I'm not just saying that. Let me show you, if I can figure out how to work this. The Department of Justice has actually done some research, and fairly extensive research, 18 different studies on the impact of Neighborhood Watch on crime and the quality of life in neighborhoods. And I'll spare you reading you the studies, but the Cliffs Notes versions are it works. It consistently led to a significant reduction in crime compared to communities and neighborhoods that don't have Neighborhood Watch. It's a significant deterrent to crime, and it leads to improved law enforcement investigation and enforcement because information is shared more quickly, more helpfully, more usefully. We've gotten several convictions working with the police department from our Neighborhood Watch, and that's a good feeling. Our Neighborhood Watch started because we had a peeping Tom, and it got people riled up enough that we said we need to do something about it. We did. We convicted that peeping Tom, and we've had other successes as well. You can too. It's a program that works. So I think Officer Diaz has done a good job of covering the goals of a successful watch. The real trick is to learn observation skills, what to look for, what doesn't seem right. Report it. Don't worry about whether you're going to get 100% of, yeah, that was an issue or not. You'll pick up the skills, but if you see something, no one knows your neighborhood better than you do. If it doesn't look right to you, call it in. It may not be right. When we first started the program, people would call the police and say, there was a guy in my neighborhood doing this or whatever, and that's all they said. Well, there's a lot of guys in that neighborhood. If you could say he was wearing a pink parka and a green sock cap, that helps a little bit. Or if he had shoes to flash in the dark. So it's a process to learn what you can tell these folks that will really give them something to act on. They're going to send some squads into the neighborhood. I know that for a fact. But the squads need something that will help them focus their attention and their enforcement operation. So the reporting and observation skills are really key, and you'll find that you need to have a few meetings on that. We'll touch on it again in a moment. And when you really have achieved good stuff with this, you'll start calling in license plates. You won't just say it was a gold something or other, I'm not sure what. It was license plate number 5421. That they can act on. The other trick is looking for patterns. If there are drug deals happening in your neighborhood, there's a pretty good chance they're happening on some kind of consistent schedule because people need to know where the dealer is to go make the deal, right? Well, you know that car doesn't belong there. It's not right. That's not even a parking place. And you see people walk up to the window and something happens and people walk away. That's suspicious behavior. And you'll learn to be able to say, you know, I'm seeing that between 3:30 and 4:30. Sadly, you know, when school's out. Tell the police that. That helps them focus too. The other trick is rapid communication. We've had, like Officer Diaz mentioned, somebody did something bad and walked away from my house, and we hit Facebook or email with it right away, and we can track them in other parts of the neighborhood long enough for the police to come and intercept. It's a pretty big subdivision you live in. If you think about it, you can communicate pretty quickly. Oh, I saw that guy in the green parka, he's over here. So use that tool. Just a few slides about how to start. From the looks of things here, we've got some more that we need to get going, and I'm hoping I'm making the case that they actually do work. It's worth your while. We started with an ugly map like this. It's called a water distribution map, and the Village Public Works Department made that available to us. They will to you as well. Essentially, it identifies every lot in your subdivision. In our case, there were about 1,000. And we put that into a spreadsheet. So we identified every single lot, and then we began our door-to-door and calling effort to recruit members. It led to this kind of a spreadsheet. You probably can't read it, and maybe that's just as well, but we're at about, I think Fairfield Way is 80% Ben, and Foxmore is only 79%. It doesn't hurt if you can create a little competition, but that's of 1,000 homes. So we've got 800 homes that are participating in our program. If you want to come in and spray paint something, the chances of you being seen doing that are pretty good. And 800 homes could be 1,600 or more eyeballs. So think of the power of what we're talking about here. We started our effort with the realty type boxes along the walking paths that normally would say house for sale. Ours said neighborhood watch, we need your help. We went door to door. If they weren't at home, we left a sorry I missed you, and we gave them contact information and tried to explain what we were trying to accomplish.
When they went door to door, it wasn't at 2 in the morning. Let's not get a little overzealous.
It took most of the summer to get to the 70%. The rule of thumb is that for a really effective neighborhood watch, you really need to hit 70%. The worst thing you can do is put a sign in the neighborhood with almost no involvement and say, we got a neighborhood watch, because you've damaged the brand. People can go into that neighborhood, do some bad stuff, nothing happens, and they think, neighborhood watch is nothing. Let them get arrested a couple of times, and that attitude will change. So when you put this sign up, that's your neighborhood's brand. Make it worth something. And this may not be right for everyone, but it's helped us. We put an online sign-up form out as well, and in recent years, it's our most popular. People tend to just go online, and that walks them through the information that we need from them to be able to reach them quickly in the case of a serious issue, a gas main break or whatever. And it also tells them a bit more about how they can help the program. You may work for a company that has a gift-giving program that you just simply say, I'd like to support my neighborhood watch group. That checkbox is there, and it can help you afford some of the materials that you may want for training and for decals in the doorway. This is the real key. The police department was very generous in working with us to create an incident report form. I know it looks a little bit imposing, but it's exactly what the officer was trying to explain. If we want people to call it in quick, but we also want them to sit down and fill out this form so the rest of the neighborhood can know what they saw and can begin to learn also what a good report looks like. If people follow this form, even partially, they've done a lot better than just saying there were a couple of guys in my neighborhood. And this goes automatically to all of our block captains, to all of our watch leaders, and it goes to a couple of people in the police department. So it's well worth considering doing. If any of you would like something like that, we'll be happy to work with you and get one that's branded to you. And then be proactive. Once you've got your group started, the holidays, the summer vacation months, there are a lot of periods during the year when school lets out where you're going to see a spike in bad behavior, and you can be proactive and help people learn how to deter or prevent or avoid that. It's a very valuable part of keeping your watch active and healthy. There are some training opportunities as well. This was a national program that happened to be in Wisconsin, and we were able to attend it. I think it was $100. It wasn't a lot, but we came back with a 3-ring binder of ideas and material Plus, we got to talk with maybe 75 other watch groups and law enforcement people, sharing best practices and worst practices. Whoops. And lastly, there is the National Neighborhood Watch org website, which has training materials. It has web information, web training. You can order the signs or the decals. I think it's very valuable to have decals in your home windows, and I think they should be big enough that somebody can see them from the sidewalk or the street. You don't want a dinky one. You want them to say, yeah, I think I'll find a different neighborhood. And if we're all part of this program, the different neighborhood will be somewhere in downstate Illinois and not even close to Montgomery. So that web address, nnw.org, nationalneighborhoodwatch.org, is kind of a home base for ideas, training, and material. And that's where you'll see the national training opportunities posted. They move around the country, but not occasionally, we get our turn in the Midwest, usually St. Louis or Milwaukee, Chicago. So be mindful of that. It's well worth attending. This is not the most common Neighborhood Watch graphic, but it's one of the newer ones. And although we've spent a lot of time talking about what's involved in these groups and some stuff that sounds like work, it's worth it. And I've kind of pinched the Nike logo and say, just do it. Give it a try. Pull your neighborhood together. Become a neighborhood. And push back against this kind of behavior. You really will get what you settle for. And say, I'm not going to settle for that. This is my home.
I'd just like to add a couple things. I'm the coordinator for Neighborhood Watch in Orchard Prairie North. And what made us start was we had a house that was, I think the police had been there probably 40 times. And there was a junior high graduation party one night that there were 60 or 70 kids there. They spilled out in front of the front yard, were having a huge brawl. Police were called. I think we counted 25 or 26 squads. Kane County, Kendall County, Oswego, Yorkville, Sugar Grove, Montgomery, State Police. There was an issue, same night, same party. I watched an officer have 4 juveniles spread out in the backyard at gunpoint, and there was a vehicle headed towards him. A couple days after that, one of my neighbor's 4-year-old sons found a set of brass knuckles in his yard. And at that point, enough was enough. And so there are things now, as a village board, we have a nuisance ordinance which we've created and which we've strengthened and which we've now used in order to fine and remove people if they're renters. If there are bad homeowners, there are good homeowners. There are bad renters, there are good renters. I have renters on either side of me that, quite honestly, I wish would purchase the homes because we love them to death. A couple of years ago, Montgomery came out with this landlord-tenant lease addendum and crime-free agreement, and I have some copies up here. And what this does, when there's an issue with the home and there's a homeowner, we can deal with that. The police can deal with that. They can deal with that directly. But when there's a renter and they're breaking the law, it makes it more difficult because, yes, we can go after the renter, but we also need to go after the homeowner. And so what this is this is essentially an addendum. If someone were to rent their home, that this is an addendum to that lease, and it's a 4-page thing, and it basically says, I will follow the ordinances of the village, and if there are issues, you can be removed. And I know that we're looking at a couple houses now where that issue is going to, we're pursuing that. And 98% of the people in Montgomery are great. We have an awesome village. That's why I moved here. That's why my wife and I have a family here. There's 2% that are kind of questionable, and they cause issues for everybody else. Neighborhood Watch works, and I know this because we had an issue in the years after we created Neighborhood Watch where a homeowner was renting out his home, and he was renting it to Aurora University students. And so they were having parties. There were people leaving drunk. There were people peeing on neighbors' cars and all sorts of things. And so we got in contact with the homeowner, and the homeowner was very receptive, and it was a group effort of village, police, Neighborhood Watch, HOA, and homeowner, and we solved the problem. And it takes a group effort. These officers here, and every officer on Montgomery Police Department, is here to help us, and they want as safe a neighborhood, as safe a town as we can possibly do. They are here to help us. And what this was earlier, this is what information can we provide to them where they are able to help us. With that, we're going to turn it over to questions. What we're going to do, like I said earlier, is we're going to come down, we're going to use this podium here. You're going to sign in. We'll make sure that the speaker is on, and then address your questions. If it's the same question, don't have multiple residents ask the same question. We want to try and get through this and be as effective as possible. Okay? No one has any questions?
Come on, Liz. She'll start it.
I'll start off.
While we're waiting, for those who haven't seen the Neighborhood Watch page that Stan does in that group, they do an amazing job. That's the way to do it, and I'm glad he spoke on it, because that Neighborhood Watch group and the page and the things they do have helped tremendously. And again, it takes a lot of people. It can't be tasked all to one person, but when you get a group of people that care, like we do tonight, it's gonna make a huge difference. So please visit that page, because it's pretty cool. So, good job.
Hi, my name is Liz Copeland. Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, I want to thank the police officers, because I'm one of the people who calls them all the time when I see something suspicious. Last year, I was in my garage. I was going to get in my car, put my purse in, and I turned and looked, and there's someone standing in my garage. He was a solicitor. The first thing I always ask is, "Where's your badge?" He backed out. I called the police. He was the same guy that was at my house the year before, because I remembered him with blonde curly hair. And both Stan and Steve know my feelings. I do not like solicitors. I do not like the fact that people can come to my home, even if I have a sign, which they ignore. I don't like strange people that are not from Montgomery, that are not from my neighborhood, coming around that don't belong. And I was the one who had the trail cam set up in my yard, hopefully to get the fox. And when I downloaded the images, I had 3 men in my backyard at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I don't really like people coming around. I've spent several $100s and am having more lights. I have cats, so I'm not going to have a dog. More lights, motion cameras, and I'm just trying to tell everyone, if you see something, call. This is what we pay our taxes for. Our police are here for us. If you're not sure, my next door neighbor said, "Well, I was up at 3 and I saw some people a kid walking down the street," and I said, "Did you call the police?" And he said, "No." And I'm constantly saying, call. call. If there's a car sitting out in front of my house at 11:30 at night, and I know my neighbors, I'm going to call just to have somebody drive by. I'm not going to take any chances. And I hope that everybody else has had enough of what's been going on in our village. I've been here for 27 years. I love this place. It's a great place. It's nice and quiet. It's still at night. But now it's not. And I think we all need to band together and call the police, talk to our village about letting solicitors come. And while you're here, I'm just going to add my little ding about Halloween. 8 o'clock is too late. Okay, sorry, that's my other gripe, is that 8 o'clock at night is too late and it's dark, and I don't like people coming to my door. You know, I live alone, so I'm hoping that the rest of the village, we want to keep this place a nice, safe place to be. So call the police and sign up for the watches. So thank you for having this, Steve.
I think you touched on a very good point in that you need to call the police. Too many times people will say, well, I didn't really want to bother you. And I always remember this story. There are many victories we've had from people calling, but the one I personally remember, we had many years ago. It was a carjacking where they followed an employee from work with a deposit, hit the car. The guy got out, thought it was an accident. They sprayed him. Someone hit him. They took his car, the money, took off. We caught him, and we were canvassing the neighborhood, looking around. We're all over. And then a day or two later, we found a lady who was like, well, you know what? I did see a lot of cars out there, and there was a guy. And then he ran in my backyard, hopped the fence, ducked down, then he took his shirt off. Then he jumped over the fence, and he left. But did you call? No. Unless you have like an Olympic training field in your backyard. And this was like during the afternoon. People don't hurdle fences and change and run around. But people think like, well, I don't want to burden the police. We have to know. I mean, what you live there, you know what's suspicious versus what not. But I mean, that's a true story. But like, sometimes you have to prod people like, okay, that is really suspicious. So just keep that in mind. And again, it is our job to respond, and we will respond, and we take all calls seriously. So keep that in mind.
Well, the reason we're having dialogue at the podium is because this is a recorded meeting. We need to be able to hear you. So you don't have to ask questions. If you want to have dialogue, you can still come up to the podium. Or do you want us to
Pass the mic
pass the
around.
mic around? You afraid of being on YouTube? I've been on there a lot. I think it's okay then if, as long as it's recorded, we'll just pass the mic around then.
No, let's use the mic so we can.
Hi. Just a couple of quick comments. So, Mr. Saunders, you say that you can't be everywhere. And of course, I think we all understand that. That's not our profession, that's your profession. But I think most of the people in attendance are here because of the things that are going on. I think the main thing is that they don't see the police presence after some of these issues. You know, I would just say, if you can't be everywhere, where are you during those times? And I understand that, you know, maybe some of those things are plainclothes officers and those kind of things, but I think most people would feel better, not that we expect you to solve the problem. We understand you're not going to stumble across somebody breaking into my car, but to see an answer to our concerns, right? So I don't know if that's a staffing issue or, you know, I don't think Montgomery is that big of a place, but, you know, I think that's part of it. You talk about Facebook and not doing things on your own. Some of the things that concern me are some of the conversations that start off by saying, if the police don't do something, I'm going to start, you know, God forbid I catch them myself. You know, not that I feel that way, but I think that, you know, that's something to be concerned about. And I think one plays off of the other. When there's no police response to those things, you know, you've got people that are waiting to have the wrong person end up on their doorstep to take it into their own hands. So,
Do you have examples? Or do you have an example of what,
which part?
where, go ahead.
In the community groups, I've read those comments too, and they are alarming and disturbing to me. And I think that's the point really tonight, is to band us together. And I know that many of you are in the groups out west, and I unfortunately am not in the part out east, but we need to all band together, because clearly these car burglaries and everything are not just in Lakewood Creek. Okay, so it is, you know, and we've discussed that neighboring departments and everything. So there's been a widespread. So when you comment that people have posted on there that they haven't seen the police presence, you know, I can understand how people will say that, because we're a small department. We have our guys out there. We are out there, and we do have our plans that how we're handling it. And when we've said earlier, we're not going to divulge tactics like plainclothes and all that. Those comments about taking it into their own hands, that was kind of my whole spiel on, would we want our children to post that? Would we want our children to read that? And really the whole point of Neighborhood Watch is to come together and learn how to properly band together and communicate. There's one resident, he's not here, but he posted recently about, hey, let's just have, I think you guys had a softball game or something, and now he wants to do a barbecue. You know, and I think what would be great is once everybody gets their Neighborhood Watch up and going, you know, friendly competition against each other, or getting to know more people, because then somebody says, hey, my car is on Avalon and it got broken into. Somebody that lives on Foxmore really might not have an idea where Avalon is, but you have a better gauge of things like that. The police presence is there, you know, and am I defending us? Of course, I am. But I know where our guys are, and I see all the reports coming in, and we haven't just been having car burglaries. There's clearly been other calls for service that they've tended to, but I want our community to trust in us, because our guys are out there doing their job, and they obviously are, because we caught the one, but.
I mean, I guess I just feel like, even if it's a useless pass-by.
Sure.
Right, that, you know, when it's happening night after night after night, that even in these, you know, Facebook pages or whatever, they can say, oh, well, I did see the police come by or whatever. I mean, if you can check, and I don't mean it to sound as disrespectful as it might sound, but if you can check 72 cars in an hour, I'm sure that wasn't 72 out of 72, right? You probably,
Correct.
I hope you had checked more than that to find a few locked.
Right.
And if that's only an hour spent in that time, you know, maybe how many times could we drive around the neighborhood rather than on foot checking 75 cars?
Well,
And then I understand that that's, you know, that sounds disrespectful, but it kind of feels today, after an hour of starting a Neighborhood Watch, it feels like we're on our own, and that if you want to cut down on these things, do it yourself. And I know that's not what you're intending to say, but I think most of the people are here, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think most of the people are here to try and have an opportunity to hear what you guys think you can do to speed up some of the results, that's all.
Well, one quick comment, Jim. Our officers drive down the street every shift, every day. So for you to say that, you know, you don't see anybody, that's totally wrong. You're not standing in your kitchen window, you know, watching your street 24/7 or 8 hours a day, because you're busy in your house, chasing kids around, doing your work. I don't know, I'm sad that that's how you feel, that well, you're on your own. That's not why we're here tonight. That was not Trustee Youngerman's purpose to call this meeting, is to tell you, oh, you're on your own. So it's sad you feel that way. So let's talk with my staff afterwards, and let's get your Neighborhood Watch rolling.
Again, I think that's kind of the thing. You know, of course, we need to participate more. You know, we need to lock our vehicles more frequently, close our garage doors more frequently. But and nothing would appreciate some advice on how to start a Neighborhood Watch. But I think the idea of a Neighborhood Watch is, you know, to supplement what you guys are already doing. So, I guess
it's a partnership, Jim. It's a partnership.
came down because I did have one comment actually in regards to what you're speaking of. A couple weeks back, when some of the stuff was going on in my neighborhood, I was walking home from a friend's house. You know, we were hanging out, and I decided to walk home. At 1:30 in the morning, I saw a car with no lights on driving around the neighborhood. Called it in. Yeah, I called in the unmarked squad car. That was So my question was that I had is, and I know Montgomery's grown a lot in the 5 years that I've been here. So is there any plans in the future to possibly grow the department? And if so, where might it lead and what are the plans?
Yeah, absolutely.
Take that. Turn on.
Yes, so, thank you for that, appreciate that. This year, we are approved to hire 2 officers, so that'll get us to 30. That's a milestone for our department. So we have 2 starting, one on Sunday and one on Monday. They will attend the academy June 26th. And those are replacements, and then we're adding 2 more, September and January hire. So we just added a 3rd detective, which helps inside. So we're doing a lot. And I thank the board and the mayor for allowing us to hire. And my police commissioners are right here in the middle, all 3 of them. So I thank you for appointing the 2 new officers. Oh, sure. The question is, from trustee Marisek, is the time that it takes. So this academy will be a 14-week academy, starts June 26th. After the officers graduate, they'll attend a program called Field Training Officer Program, which lasts between 12 and 14 weeks. So now you're at 28 weeks, which is over a half a year. After that, then the officer is on a solo patrol for 2 weeks, which is monitored by a field training officer. So you're at about 30 weeks now before the officer hits the street. So we're talking over a half a year before, you know, our officers that are going to start the academy here June 26th that are be effective technically.
What kind of bench do you keep? People in the background that have already been to the academy and are ready to go. You don't have to do quite 30 weeks before they start.
Are you asking, do we have certified people on a list that we're ready to hire from if we have a hole?
Count and go ahead and hire, and you obviously take weeks away from when they're ready to go.
So he's asking if we hire someone, can we hire someone who's certified already so we can skip the academy and then begin the FTO program? Yes, absolutely. And those are the candidates we go for first. But if they're not on the list and we've exhausted the list, then
Look at you.
we have to go in order and go through the academy. And the officer, what day was that? He's driving around with his lights on. I got to talk to him. Have to him and Sergeant Palco. We're going to have some conversation later.
Okay, I can ask a question? Okay. So I'm fortunate enough to live on what I feel has kind of become infamous Rebecca Circle. And I haven't been here quite a year, purchased my home, and love it completely. But I do see a lot of action. We do see a lot of traffic. We see a lot of movement. What exactly is the parameter for curfew? And how many can be congregated together at one time prior to curfew? I'm not sure I know those parameters exactly.
Yeah, so I'll answer that quick question. There could be 50 kids hanging together. There's no law against that. The curfew is Friday and Saturday, midnight, and Sunday through Thursday, 11 p.m.
For what ages?
Pardon me?
For age.
Ages 17 is curfew. Is that?
Do you want to go through the protocols? I'll make contact with them.
But there is no amount of kids that, There's no rule against that. Now, what she's referring to is Chicago has an ordinance that you can't have more than 4 on a street corner. The Supreme Court found that unconstitutional. Now, we don't get to do that here in Montgomery. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Del Boudreau, and I live in the Orchard Prairie North subdivision. And I, too, would like to thank all the officers who respond to my frequent phone calls, because I'm not afraid to call. One question I do have is, I've lived here for almost 10 years now, and when we first moved in, I looked at our backyard that faces a forest preserve, and there's a bridge that goes over into the other subdivision, and we absolutely loved it. It was like there was a beautiful walking path, bike path back there, and I'd think nothing of walking down that path by myself, taking my bike. But over the last couple of years, when we look out our yard, our windows, that bridge area seems to have become nothing but an attraction for juveniles, maybe criminals, I'm not sure, but for them to hang out at. And there's been numerous times where there's been a lot of graffiti written on the bridge, but it's almost scary now. I don't feel safe there. And we talk about cars, police cars riding through the neighborhoods. Is there ever any foot walking done over that bridge or around that area? I'm assuming you know which area I'm talking about, but it is a little scary to me. So that is my question. Do we ever patrol that on foot? Because I've seen everything going on there. I've seen some police activity at night at like 1 a.m, chasing offenders who are running from something. I've seen people walking their dogs on the path that are totally off leash. I've seen motor vehicles that are not police vehicles driving down that walking path. So it has become sort of an area that you don't want to be a part of.
So those things that you've seen, are those all things that you've called in on? Absolutely. Okay. So we do foot patrols. I apologize, I've not yet heard about a vehicle driving down that path other than my squad car and a couple others, so.
I've called several times, people in motorcycles.
Okay, motorcycles.
In the wintertime, it's a
Okay.
snowmobile path.
I thought you had said like cars, like.
I just said motor vehicles,
Okay.
motorized.
Okay, so our officers do foot patrols. Granted, now in the summer months, the park right over there, the path goes from the park all the way to Aldi. It is very common. We find juveniles all the time riding their bikes, dumping bikes over there. We are aware of that. However, we don't know exactly what time it's all happening, because sometimes we get calls that a bike is dumped over there. So obviously a kid was coming from the park, took the bike from somewhere. So if we don't know the when, and I appreciate you calling, but we will take this and tell our afternoon and midnight shift and day shift to make sure they're going back there more often. But midnights is great about doing their foot patrols. They like it. We all like to get out of the car. It's very boring if you're in the car the whole time. So we will bring that back up to them, because that is one of our responsibilities, is to walk the parks and stuff and help out the park district.
And when I see it, I call.
Well, I appreciate that, because if you don't call, we don't know it happened.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was kind of going to talk about curfew also. I'm on Oakmont and Rebecca, and I've talked to Steve about this a couple times. I think our main issue right in that vicinity is the curfew and the kids walking around late at night. Last week I was woken up at 1 a.m. to a group of kids walking in the middle of the street, screaming and yelling and having a conversation. And I called the 911, and she said, oh, they're headed home. They've already been called on. With curfew, if a police officer was to approach that group of kids, are they not escorted home? Are they just told to go home? I just kind of see with everything going on, that night, the next morning I woke up to like everyone's cars got egged. And it's kind of like, oh, this group of kids was in the middle of the street walking around Lakewood, made it to the school and back to Rebecca. And the dispatcher just said, oh, they've been called on already. I don't know if they were allowed to walk home, or I remember growing up, the kids had to be taken home or come get them down at the station. So I don't know. I guess I just see that there's a lot of problems, and that might solve some of it by saying, we're going to take you home, and the parents might realize where their kids are and not just walking the streets.
Yeah, I will turn that over to my deputy chief, who was on the scene of that.
Yeah, with, like, for the dispatcher to say that, I hope it wasn't misconstrued, like, don't call. But we would still go there, and even if they have received a call, again, it's good to receive multiple calls so that we can also track where they're going. But with that, when we encounter juveniles, no, it's not just, okay, go home now, disperse, but we have to identify them, identify their ages, and then find out where they live, who they're with, and either take them to the station where their guardians or parents are inconvenienced and come in, because that's a deterrent for that activity. Or if it is a house or two-way, then yes, they're escorted and, hey, here's what we have, here's what's going on. Now, there are some exceptions, like if they're working or if there's some emergencies, but outside of that, that should be the typical protocol you see.
And that night, ma'am, we did arrest two. And they will be going to juvenile court, and their parents will be with them. So it's working. Now, there were some 18 and 19-year-olds in that group, which, yeah, not much you can do about it. Now, they're walking down the street. We had that conversation with them also.
That may lend to some of what James. I believe that's some of what may be talking about. Like, for this resident, for her to say, hey, I called, was told that we were already called, and then wake up the next morning, find a bunch of vehicles. If she didn't know this conversation right now, she would assume nothing happened. Well, clearly, right. Correct. So I think many residents would think the same thing. So part of it is, okay, you don't know the end result of what happened, because like in that instance, yes, we did take two juveniles back to the station, and they were referred for the juvenile court system. But a lot of times when people call, you may not see the end result. That doesn't mean it hasn't been addressed, but that's a valid concern that I think anybody would have. Hey, what are you guys doing? And if you didn't know from us talking right now, it's easy to assume nothing happened that night.
And to follow up on that further, two of them were juveniles, and it's hard to tell sometimes if they're 17, 18, 19. I'm sorry, everyone looks 10 to me. They're 10. They're just 10. But at least if you call us and they're suspicious, there's nothing, suspicious being out there talking loudly, whatever, disturbing and suspicious. We can stop and talk to them and identify them. Now they may, be cooperative with us, and it may go a different route. But by all means, call us, and we can identify them. And then if it is a curfew violation, we act appropriately. If they're adults, we find out the story of where they say they're going to, and then we have that documented. So the next 2 hours later, when we get a report in a similar area of something that happened, hey, we were just out with that kid, and that's how we start developing these things.
One of the things I brought up at Monday night's meeting, the village board meeting, is increased fines for juvenile offenses. That's something that our village attorney is looking into, and something that is slated for the village board to discuss at some point. But we're going to start holding the parents of these juveniles that cause issues, we're going to start holding them accountable. And if that means increased fines, then that means increased fines.
To that point that you just made, is there kind of a program for these kids that get in trouble that we can have them do on top of the parents being fined? Yeah, I don't know you, but when I was young, I didn't want to spend my summer picking up crap on the side of the street.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
That's a good idea, though.
Through Kendall County, we refer them to Kendall County. So through Kendall County, they do have, like, say, for example, if we arrest a juvenile for retail theft, they get to go to theft school. I think it teaches them not to steal. I don't know. I've never been, but they get sentenced these things, and there are juvenile probation, and they have to check in, and they do. Sometimes they get ordered restitution, and that's up to Kendall County when we refer them there. So I believe what Trustee Youngerman is talking about is more on a local level here in Montgomery when we don't refer them to court. So that would be something, Village, that we currently don't have in place, a trash pickup or what do you call that? Community service, that's it, yeah. County has it.
Yeah, change it.
That's fun.
Yes, sir.
Well, that kind of answers one of my questions. I was going to ask about deterrence, because if we're seeing an uptick, obviously the deterrents we have in place now are not really working as deterrents. But I guess my question goes towards more root cause of this. Everything we're talking about Neighborhood Watch is, I think it's a great program. I plan on either getting one started or getting involved in my local one. But do we know why, or we suspect why we've seen this uptick in the local communities, as well, including ours, in crime lately?
No, I'm not sure why that we've had that uptick.
Go ahead.
You mean schools though?
Right.
I'm not a new resident to Montgomery. I just moved in our house in Secret area a month ago. But I've been in this area of Noble Hill for 38 years. I raised my family there. It was a beautiful neighborhood. We could walk around, take the kids. My wife would take my neighbors down there. And now I would not do that. It's a totally changed neighborhood. Montgomery does not have authorization to control the area there. It's Randall County. You call Randall County and maybe they may show up. So I know they have a big county to cover. And thieves and the gangsters, the gangster quantities, and they're coming in from Chicago and Aurora, they know this. And it's not much to read over about 25 months. I think that's part of the problem right there. Boulder Hill has changed, and it's brought in a bad element, and this element is kind of like Geneva is going this way.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Again, that, in areas that adjoin Montgomery, we do have good working relationships with the Kendall Gang Unit, Aurora's Gang Unit, and that's part of what we do when we track gang activity, when and where. But obviously, when they come into town, again, they don't announce it, but we do track it as much as we can. But that is an issue, and we do sometimes have what we have are called knock and talks, where if we know of a residence and we suspect one of the kids is getting involved in gang activity, because it becomes like their family, and it's a cycle that never ends, because if you hurt my brother, now I hurt your brother, and that's part of the problem, that it's just universal with gangs. But we have a reputation in Montgomery of being pretty strict and pretty strong, and we earn that reputation because we don't tolerate that. But that is a valid point. In neighboring communities, and again, everywhere, there are gang members. So, but we do have, like I said, we have our gang officers that will track all that, and then we will go speak to that resident and talk to those kids and see if we can do any type of deterrent intervention before they really join a gang.
My question might have already been answered already, but I know you talked about the hiring of 2 soon to replace and then 2 more in the future. Is there any talk about like possibly adding shifts at like the night shifts, like overtime shifts or something to help decrease this uptick that's going on right now during the early summer? Or is it a funding issue? I know we have a lot of our board here, so.
Yeah, great question. One thing that we don't want to publicize is, where our people are, where my officers are. But we have done that, to answer your question.
Okay.
But I really don't want to discuss that publicly, but afterwards I can talk.
No, I just wanted to see if it was
Yeah.
a funding issue.
Oh, it's not a funding issue. No, absolutely not. The village board has been more than generous for the police department's budget.
Mhm.
I just want to chime in if I can. I'll go to this microphone.
You got to go talk straight into it. That's
Yeah.
all.
So I just want to point out to everybody, because again, thank you all for being here. Trustee Youngerman for organizing and putting this together. I'm Doug Marisek. I'm one of the village board members with Stan and Steve. One of the things that people need to understand and realize, there was an issue out on the west side a couple years ago, and someone went and suggested the idea of, well, why aren't the police putting a camera in the house across the street? Well, thank you very much, because now that is no longer an effective tool. because everyone in the world knows that they had already put the camera in the house across the street. But everybody that's on Facebook, understand, so are the people that you're talking about. You may not realize it. They don't list their name as hashtag I'm a criminal. They are friends or cousins with somebody in the neighborhood or an aunt or an uncle, and they're monitoring it and patrolling it and watching it. And I'm sure Sergeant Palco can attest to some of that stuff. Like she said, she's on a lot of these pages, and you don't know she's on that page. Well, so are the bad people. So be very cautious when you're out patrolling and you see and call in the unmarked squad car. I remember it happened to a neighbor of mine was an officer, and he got called in because he was over by the park, and it was all over Facebook. There's an unmarked car sitting by the park. Again, that's great. What is the benefit to telling the world that the police are doing something to help better the safety of our neighborhood, and you're now informing the bad people of the same thing? So just be cautious and be vigilant, like everyone's talking about, and watching and paying attention and notifying and advising the police of what's going on. But hold your tongue sometimes, because too much information is making it to the wrong people, just like they can't tell who they're adding, when they're adding, where shifts, where patrols are. That is some operational security there for a reason. So just trust in the fact, and it's not easy. Trust. These are paid professionals, and they are doing a good job for us. They're working hard for us. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you. Thank you. One thing that also with Facebook and Sergeant Palco, I think we've all touched on it again. It's good and evil, but one thing is to not be naive that someone you may know, someone in your family, someone you're friends with, may be committing a crime. Because a lot of times we have family members that say, that could never be mine, that couldn't be little Johnny. It's like, okay, well, we have some video, we have some things, but they're going to get a lot of information from you on your Facebook. And if, again, we divulge what we're doing, they're smart. I mean, nowadays, I know social media, every kid with a phone, it's instantaneous. And there's networks that people have that say, hey, here's where the police are, or where are they at? And apps that will do different things. But be open-minded when we're asking questions. We're not accusing anybody or saying, hey, you have family, but we need to do our job. And people are surprised sometimes to find out, oh, that was true. Yeah, unfortunately it was, but we're here to help as well. So we have resources that we could also help. Again, like if there was someone suspected, hey, I think my son might be involved with some kids and I'm not sure, then we'll come and talk to him. And we've got officers that do a good job of that. Some of the culpability, again, would just ask, what are some of it? Some of it lies back with parenting and being strict and knowing where your children are and knowing what's going on. A lot of times when we deal with juveniles, again, it's not everything all the time, but I can tell you sometimes if we deal with a parent who's like, where was he? Okay, I'm going to come get his ass right now. That's going to do more than a referral, because they're saying, hold on, he's supposed to be over there. He's with who? Okay, wrong. I'm coming to get him. That's when you know, okay, that kid, I don't want to be that kid. And I say, do what you got to do when I leave. But that's a big, that is going away, and we haven't seen it as much as we have in the past. Because again, I know a lot of us, or maybe you could say, my dad would have just, I would have said, okay, I'm worse. I'd rather go with you, but part of it is that, So that's just something we see as well.
It's also, real quick, it's also, part of it is just society. I mean, it's everywhere that people don't know how to communicate anymore. They can text like nobody's business, and everybody's so easy to hide behind their computer. But is that how we're communicating? That's how young kids are growing up. So, when I was a kid, we went outside, you didn't come in until it was dinner time, and if you weren't in at dinner time, you were eating your dinner cold, and that's just the way it was. But now the kids don't care about dinner or anything. They walk and text, they're at the park, and it's become acceptable. So, part of it is, do parents know where their kids are? And do we as a community know what these kids out in the community, are their parents looking after them? We should know these kids. We should all know each other. Have your block parties, get to meet each other. Don't just be Facebook friends, become neighborly. If somebody's dog is barking and it's annoying you, hey, your dog is kind of annoying. Do you think you can maybe have it not bark so much? It's it's okay to have conversations with people. I don't suggest sending them a text, shut your dog up. You know, we need to talk to people. And I think that if we teach younger people that, we're never going to change the electronics and all of that. But I really, truly believe that is why our world is going this way. Kids are making decisions because do they know right from wrong? No. They know what a hashtag is. They know emojis. I don't speak emoji, you know, and that's a problem. We're not communicating on the same page.
Well said.
Actually, want to end up piggybacking a little bit on that. As a young man, and I look around the room, I may be one of the younger people here, and that's okay. As a young man, a husband, a father, my family, not by choice, but really by default, has moved 4 times in the last 3 years. And actually, we've been in Montgomery for a year. So if you do the math on that, we moved a lot of times in 2 years before that. I tell you that to say, when we landed in Montgomery, literally on April 1st, this isn't an April Fool's joke, April 1st of 2016, the community and the houses around us really came to life. We have a lot of young families and people in the front yard and the backyard and up and down the street. I live on Troon. I found out after the fact that some of us are called Troonies, and I guess if that's the case, I'm okay with that because that must mean we have a little bit of a good reputation. But anyway, what I want to tell you or share with you, it's more of a comment than it is a question, is especially in light of the individual who was arrested on Monday, let's not underestimate the long-term impact and influence that each of us can be having as men and women, as husband and wives, as moms and dads, as neighbors and friends and coworkers in what can be and what I am experiencing to be a very tight-knit community. The reason I say that is this. When I saw who was arrested on Monday in regard to some of what's been going on, I know all of us have different reactions, and I didn't know what my initial reaction was going to be when I saw who it was or what he is suspected to have done. But I have to be very honest with you. When I read that late Monday morning for the first time, I think it was Monday that was released, or Tuesday morning the news was released, my heart broke. And here's why my heart broke. I'm raising 3 sons right now who are 6, 4, and almost 2. And there was a day and a time when that young man was a 6, a 4, a 2-year-old. There was a day and time when we were the same. And let's not underestimate the impact that we could be having. And I know this might seem trite, this might seem overly simplistic, but hear me out when I tell you that I'm a byproduct of a community that raised a young man like me. And I know that we live in a community that's much like that. And so don't underestimate the impact that you could be having as a man or a woman, a husband, a wife, a father, a mother, a neighbor, a coworker, a friend. It goes a long, long way. And so when I think about Mr. Bass, I think is his last name, or Bass, if he plays the bass, I don't know. I think about his future, and it's nothing compared to what it was even a week ago. I just want to leave you with that thought, really, that you and I, as the individuals that we are and the role that we play in a community, the common unity that we share in Montgomery, Illinois, it can have such a greater impact than we would even realize. And I guess maybe my hope and prayer is that we would have a lot less Mr. Basses, and a lot more young men and women that make this community the home that we all love. So, thanks.
Well said. And just to speak on that, I completely agree. And 2 things I want to say with that. One, because I know how I was raised, or some of us are raised, and other people aren't, we can't transfer that expectation to them. And because some people are like, well, why didn't they just do this? Well, we can't answer that. But I can tell you what we can do, what you just spoke to. In my neighborhood growing up, okay, I knew who to avoid, because that lady or that server said, hey, I'm not tolerating that. I will go to your mom myself. And I was like, okay. But that's accountability, because you shouldn't be doing something. So I commend that. No.
I wouldn't say, like, what would it take for us to love our neighbors? Absolutely. Love ourselves, meaning, like, what would it take for us to bring Mr. Bass into our home for supper, to help him meet, our kids, our families? I'm not saying, it may have been too late for him. I
to that, Sergeant Palco talked on that, and it's in a lost art form, and it's communication.
Neighboring is an art and not a science. If we could just list this out ABC, we'd all be able to do it and do it well. But it is an art, and it's going to take a little bit of wrestling.
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, with that, if you're out and you say hi to people, I think too many people nowadays, if they don't have a phone, they don't know how to communicate. But hey, what's going on? Hey, what are you guys up to? Hey, these are my kids. We're playing. Where are you from? I think those things will start to build it. But again, I think communication is becoming removed because of technology.
Can you talk about that with us a little bit, like how that came to be, or is he suspecting more than just the incident that he's arrested for?
He is suspected of other burglaries, and we did have a great tip that came from a resident's video. I don't want to talk too much about it. It's pending trial, or he's although he's in jail, won't be out anytime soon. He just turned 18, so you can see what our issues were when he was a juvenile. He's been at it for quite a while. But we did get a tip via Trustee Youngerman, and we're able to put a name with a face and made the arrest. So without it being post-trial, there's pretty much not much else I can say.
Was he on the radar before that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Can I just make a real quick comment to Kyle? I think we're testing here pretty soon for police officers, so I think
He won't need cuffs for this argument. I'm not a tree hugging hippie, I'm just saying. Let's just not underestimate neighborly aspect of it.
You're right.
Be good neighbors.
Like here in Montgomery, I would say 98% of the people, I think Trustee Youngerman spoke about it earlier, 98% of the people, a very high majority of what we even deal with, they're good people. Like we stop them on a traffic stop, nice person. We go to their house for a call, ambulance call, whatever. They're nice people. This is a great community if we all choose to embrace that and make it great. The 2% that choose not to be part of our program, okay, I have 98% here. So I really, really think, Kyle, you're spot on, but getting all of these groups together and just talking and not being afraid to ask us for something or give us information, it's information sharing and it's being respectful of one another to make us all move forward together. East side, west side, I don't, this west side of Montgomery, whatever, we're Montgomery. It's Montgomery. This meeting was not just for west side residents, so I'm very glad to see you. We all are experiencing the same issues, so it's great to talk about. So I'm glad you guys all came here.
Can you get the mic, sir? Because you're pretty tough to hear. Or come on down. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if he's coming down.
Does this work down here?
Yeah.
Okay. So we talk a lot about technology, but unfortunately, this is the day and age we're in. So we started considering leveraging technology to do our jobs or help you do your jobs. There's technologies that police groups use across the country. I think it's called Shot Stopper, and basically it's cameras that go back to an operations center where either police or civilians like us can monitor it and actually have real-time updates of what's going on. It's not very expensive. I just did a quick Google search to get the cost, and it's very cheap based on what the technology can actually do for you.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Shot Stopper.
We've looked at the comparable, though.
Never heard of it.
Pardon me?
We've looked at the comparable.
If you need anybody to negotiate it, I can do that for you. I know how software companies work. I know when to buy and all the above, but I mean, starting to leverage technology to help us and help you guys, obviously you can't be everywhere. But if you had an iPad in your squad car and all of a sudden Shot Stopper went to the operations center and said, hey, this is going on, you know exactly where to go. And you, obviously, your time is of value at that point versus just patrolling the neighborhood looking for a needle in a haystack.
Correct.
What I read was 95K per square mile. According to Google, we have 10 square miles. You're looking at $950 a year. And I'll negotiate, guarantee a 75% off.
What we were trying to do, we're trying to keep this to 9 o'clock. It's about 6 minutes after 9. Is that everyone's question? Could you come down to the podium, ma'am?
It's just easier.
That's the cost of a question.
First off, we have 18,000 residents in Montgomery, and you said we have 30 police officers. So to your point, do the math. They can't be everywhere at once, which is why we need the community to help them. I think you guys are doing a pretty good job. So I just wanted to point that out. That's the ratio it's kind of against them right now, so give them a break. But I do have questions about the shooting on Sandstone Parkway. I live in Fairfield Way, and I was just a little concerned with exactly what's going on with that. I do see things on Facebook, but I've also learned that, no pun intended, people do jump the gun on Facebook. Perfect example is, unfortunately, that man that killed himself in Foxmore the other day. I think one of the initial posts was, there was a man running around the neighborhood with a rifle or with a gun. And, here I am thinking, good God, I can't even go outside right now because somebody's running around my neighborhood with a pistol. So I'm just wondering if you guys have any information about what happened at Sandstone, or if you can't talk about it, get it, understand.
No, I'm gladly talk about it. This is why tonight is here.
Okay.
And you heard Sergeant Pelker talk about social media. I was on the scene of both those.
Right.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I wasn't on Sandstone, I was on the other one, the SWAT call. And CBS is calling my cell phone within 7 minutes of me being on the scene. The scene wasn't even secured yet. And,
On
and
Sandstone?
pardon me? No,
The other one.
Okay.
the one off of Simpson
Okay.
in, by the school.
Okay.
So, to answer your question, thank you for your comments. So Sandstone, there was Facebook, but we can't, I don't have enough personnel to chase Facebook, because that's what you're doing.
Oh, right, yeah, that I
And-
would never expect you guys
Right,
to do.
and when that comment came out on Facebook, which we saw the next day or two, I don't know how that information happened. I don't know how that originates like that. So to answer your call, or your question on Sandstone, a resident let a friend stay there. The friend was arrested, sent to prison. That friend was decided to have a relationship with his girlfriend. So when he got out of prison, he shot up the house. It's basically that simple.
Okay.
That's what happened. Now, well, we don't know who shot up the house. We know why, though. And they're not talking. So that's why when I wrote the press release and I called it, it wasn't not a random act. It wasn't. They're not just driving around shooting up a house. We know why that shot up that house. And we have a sergeant that lives 2 doors from there. Well, he's retired now. He heard the shots, and we talked to him the next day. He didn't know it was gunshots, and he didn't see anything, but he did get up and look. So, yes, to answer your question, Sandstone is still under investigation.
Okay. But it is pretty much isolated, and it's, okay.
Yes, absolutely. You don't have anything to worry about with that. That was a retaliation for what happened to him while he was in jail.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect, thanks.
sure.
So nobody's going to hear me without the mic. And I'm terrified of speaking in public, so just so you know. I was hoping somebody else would bring it up, but just need some advice because I lived here since my kids were little, and it used to be pretty quiet, pretty nice neighborhood. It still is, but sometimes at night I'm concerned when I hear gunshots and like fireworks, or even it sounds like dynamite or something like that. So what advice can you give us? Because when I have called it in, they have said, where is it? And I have no idea. And I don't really, I mean, I done it, but I'm afraid of going out at 10 o'clock at night or 11 and trying to see where it's at. I don't think I should be doing that. So any advice for us?
Absolutely call. Of course, they're going to ask where, and if you don't have any idea,
at least you've called, and we can pinpoint what callers called, so we can start to target like a geographic area. Hey, it's centralized in this area, so it's got to be somewhere. So that's at least a start for that. And absolutely don't go out on your own if you hear shots fired, or, you know, that for sure you shouldn't be running around trying to find out who's shooting, or fireworks. And I think we've all learned from our experiences, let the police do that work, but at least call, because then at least we have a location. And we have different people call, we can do that.
So is there any investigation, or is there anything going on? Do we know this is going to stop, or has anybody been, you know,
Yeah,
is there anything happening?
Where do you live, ma'am?
Fairfield Way.
Are you,
Right, and we do get calls for fireworks at times. And I think we talked about earlier the order of importance of calls. It doesn't mean that your fireworks call is not important, but if somebody is in a physical altercation with somebody else, we get a battery sent out to us, dispatched to us, we have to respond to that first, naturally. However, when you call in, it's just very important to give your address, because our officers are assigned districts, and one might be right down the road from you. You may have thought it was gunshots, and perhaps he saw a fireworks display.
Yeah,
And
no, I
dispatch, the time that you call, that the dispatcher takes that call and types it in, and then the call taker takes your phone call, types it into a computer, and then there's another gal sitting over there. They dispatch it. There's a slight delay there, okay? So an officer may be down the street, and when they give it out, he may say, no, it was fireworks. Okay, and if you don't tell the dispatch center that you want to be seen, we're not going to go and knock on everyone's door that's reported fireworks.
No, I actually have gone out there at night and dragged my husband with me, you know, because they ask me, where is it? So I just tell them the division or the.
You don't know. If you don't know, I don't expect
But,
you to go investigate.
right, and I don't know if something is happening, so that was the thing. I guess it sounds like you guys may not have been that aware of it, so it just would be nice if something was being done. Something was, because I don't know what it is, and like the lady was saying, it sounds very, very loud and concerning. And you don't know if something bad is happening, you know, aside from just goofing around with fireworks. You have no idea.
In regards to fireworks, I'm just going to say this. I have experience with that. And if any of you guys know, I am the village trustee that yelled at the kids a year ago. Don't. Just call the police department. Yeah, we're still working on some community service for that one. Are we finished with questions?
I guess, can you just answer, so is somebody going to look into it and see what's going on when it goes
If you
on
call
again?
at the time that
Yeah, I
it's
have.
occurring, for sure.
And I think probably some other people
So
have.
that's how we would look into it, is if you call at the time it's occurring, and we have patrol cars out there, and they're able to locate it. Is that what you're asking, if we're gonna respond, or am
Yeah,
I
somebody,
not?
yeah, because I have called, but then you don't know, you know, what happens, and it just keeps happening.
So my suggestion may be this: the next time you hear it, you call and say that you'd like to speak with an officer, and they can stop by your house, because I'm assuming if it's waking you up, and,
Yeah, and I did speak to an officer.
okay, so someone has responded.
So, yeah, one of the times when I was out there dragging my husband, you know, the officer eventually came to us, and I just told them, you know, it sounds like it's in that direction, and that was it, and then I went back home. But my concern is, you know, trying to figure out where it's at. I have no idea.
well, there's no magic to that either, so it's pretty tough for us. But one real quick question: the village strengthened the fireworks ordinance last year, which gave us an additional couple tools to work on. Now, you know, we're only, 20 days away. We're not going to be able to solve literally hundreds of fireworks calls up until July 4th. It's a perfect time to talk about it. we will attempt to locate the offenders, but it's pretty tough. And it's very tough to build a case to bring it to court. So we do have a stronger ordinance, so that should help.
Are questions completed? I'll just go ahead. I'm going to address, we've been speaking about Facebook and stuff, and I'll just address this real quick. There's an article out in Oswego Ledger that says it's related to dogs, and it's going around, it's saying that I want to kill your puppy, basically. It's nothing of the sort. I brought it up at the last meeting. We've had a community enforcement officer and a police officer recently that were both attacked. The police officer received 8 stitches. My comments were this: if a dog is going to attack somebody, I don't want a 2-strike rule. If a dog is going to attack somebody and leave 8 stitches, I want the dog euthanized. And part of the quote in there says that I don't feel that the death of the dog is punishment enough. And let me say what I mean by that. I mean that I believe that either you should be pursued criminally or you should be pursued civilly because you're not able to control your animal. I'm not going to have a 2-strike rule because I'm not going to be a trustee that has to go to a 3-year-old's family and say why this child is either disfigured or dead because we were aware of a dog that had attacked someone previously and we didn't do anything about it. So that's clarification on that article. It's a bad article, it's a bad quote, and I disagree with the article.
But isn't that what you said? I mean, I watched the YouTube thing, and that's exactly what you said. You weren't specific about what dog you were talking about at first. Let me finish. I let you finish.
Go ahead.
Okay, you weren't specific at first about what dog you were speaking about. And that is a dog that's attacked other people before, so we should have done something about that, but we didn't. So that could have been the call that you made. Hey, this is somebody that's been out there 4 times, and now this officer has 8 stitches.
Correct.
And we have dogs in our neighborhood like that. But you know what?
That was
I mean,
code enforcement.
you can't go ahead and just make a blanket statement like that and not expect to get slammed, because I know you did.
Then I just clarified.
Well, I'm just saying that maybe you should clarify, you know, to the public and to the newspaper. I guess the newspapers.
I just did.
Okay, well, but you're still saying every dog that bites once should be
I
euthanized.
didn't say bite, I said attacked.
Okay. But
There's a
what-
difference
are you-
between biting and attacking.
what is that? Are you going to be the end all be all?
When there's a dog hanging off an officer's arm,
Okay.
and it leaves puncture marks, and they have to go and they have to have 8 stitches,
Okay.
I'm not going to give that dog another chance.
But you're not talking
If the
about
dog is
every dog.
if the dog is nipping at your heel and it's a family dog and it's inside your house, I could care less.
All right, before we
Hold
keep
on.
going-
Quick thing.
People are leaving. and
We're
you
we're
guys-
getting to that.
Right, but people are leaving. So before we leave, we've had a good meeting. This is like a conversation that I think could go after, because this isn't the
It's
forum.
not really what it was about.
Right.
Well,
before
but I
people
just want to
leave,
clarify.
I want to thank
But
them for
but you
coming.
shouldn't have had
doing
that
this.
floor, because that's not what it's about.
The other thing, what we hope to do from this meeting is the people who signed up for Community Watch, we hope to have another follow-up meeting. That way we can get them organized. I will talk with Trustee Bond. We will figure out when and where that meeting will be held. It may be held here. It may be held at the PD. It depends on the estimated turnout. Thank you for coming. And if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me.
No, I'm cool. I mean, you have your opinion, but you have a big voice too. And you should have made it clear when you made those statements at the meeting what dog you were talking about and not in general. And I think that's why people attacked.
I said in the beginning, though, in that meeting, I said we recently had a code enforcement officer and a police officer attacked.
But then you didn't clarify that you were talking about euthanizing